Welcome back to resilient.com. And I'm delighted to say that we have previous guest, Mr. Jack Harra, joining us from Kiev. Kiev, that's how you pronounce it, right? I always make sure I say it right.
No, technically, oh my gosh, it's a whole thing, but Kiev.
Kiev, okay.
It's
And
not Kiev. Kiev.
yeah, great. Well, we'll try to get it right there, Jack. But Jack is, since we last saw him, he redeployed and has been working over in the Ukraine and very actively involved. So glad to see you doing well, Jack. And tell us what's been going on since we last saw you. It's probably like 4 or 5 months, and since you redeployed and were recovered from your wounds and your injuries. And man, we've been watching this news, and it's just shocking what's going on there every day. It's just absolutely incredible to watch. And I'd love to hear a little bit about your experience so far, what you've been doing since we last spoke.
Yeah, so I got back in the country a few months ago. Getting back in was fine, great. Authorities were great coming through and got me a car this time. So I got wheels, and that's been really nice. But went and joined up with the Legion again, and did some work over on the east, kind of towards the Svatove area from Kupiansk. But great unit, really great Legion unit, really great brigade that we were working with from the Ukrainian army. That was our Ukrainian army overlords have learned a lot, I will say, in the last year. I was thoroughly impressed with their operations. They really treated us like we were valuable assets. They really made sure. I mean, they were putting us in the red zone, right? So we were, our job was assault, and we were penetrating the gray zone and getting into the red zone and cleaning up Russian positions. But
so let me halt you there for a second, Jack. For those that are not experts in military and tactics, all these zones, you basically went back to the front lines and fight Russians. Is that what you were doing?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And is that what were you involved, like sort of trench warfare like we seen in the videos, or were you assaulting, positions in towns? What type of battles were you involved in?
So I only did 2 missions with the Legion this last time out. I still haven't fully recovered from my injuries. And I learned that while I was with them. But we hit a town, a small village, and we hit. I did a drone mission that was kind of boring, actually, but that was going. Everything is a mix of trenches are very prevalent here. It's so easy to dig in the ground. So there's always trenches, even if you're in a city. There's going to be trenches. But this was not in one of the super hot zones. This wasn't in Bakhmut or Volodar or anything like that. This was a bit north of both those areas, and the line there is pretty settled. We're just, both of us, both Russia and Ukraine, we're both just trying to get little pieces, and that's what we were trying to do at the time. This was during the winter, and it's been a warm winter, which meant that we couldn't move vehicles like I expected us to. We weren't able to do any winter offensive stuff. But yeah, my job was I was for the one serious mission I got to attend. I was our point man. I was our lead assault commander. Inside the platoon. So it was good. It was a good group of guys. It was a really good unit. And I'm thoroughly impressed with the changes the Ukrainian army's made, and then some of the changes the Legion's made since I've been there.
So when we last spoke, the Legion was kind of newish, and you were mentioning how there were guys that just weren't up to snuff. They hadn't really, had the experience. They were joining, but they didn't have true military experience. Some had been like on SWAT teams in airports and cities and so on. How's the what's the level like now of the Legion versus when we last spoke in terms of their abilities and their training, which you're involved in?
And I'm not super involved in the Legion. I will say I was with my group for 2 months in the winter this last time. But there's a lot of different Legion units. Actually, I'm not going to say any numbers or organization, but there's basically we have a fairly heavy hitter team and well, called a battalion. Let's say we got a heavy hitter battalion. Those guys are doing great work. Those guys are doing a really good job. And they don't. We've figured out the vetting, I would say, and um, we figured out the vetting to this point where we have certain groups that will take the newer, less experienced people still, but they'll be they're more aware of like what their role is going to be, and they're more aware of their limitations on their experience, and they're not. We're much more cautious about taking people on. The vetting has gotten significantly better, and the people I was working with were great people. It was and I was impressed. We made a lot of changes. It's not perfect. It is not perfect, and I wouldn't say it's not good. It's not good. It's not still not a good picture overall. So, but it's better. It's significantly improved.
So the all these Wagner mercenary guys and these ex-prisoners that have been let out of jails to basically work as cannon fodder for some of the Russian forces, um, that stuff just seems unbelievable. I was listening to a podcast with a Ukrainian frontline soldier who said he felt like he was in a video game. He said these Russian guys were coming out of the forest. They weren't even trying to take cover. They were just going straight for his position. And for 2.5 hours, they just mowed down wave after wave after wave of these zombie-like mercenary guys. And he said he has nightmares. He said it felt like a zombie apocalypse game that he was in, and yet it was real. I mean, what do you hear about these guys, and what do your friends on the front line say about that situation?
Well, the Russians are not sitting idle. I'll say that. Where we were, they were actually doing a pretty good job fighting us, and they even we had a pretty bad day dealing with them one time. But yeah, and Bakhmut is where you're talking about the Wagner guys, which I wasn't in Bakhmut, but we're getting the updates about the tactics and the updates about what they're doing, so we're aware of it when we eventually go there, which is actually going to be pretty soon here. But yeah, they basically have a core team of trained guys that will be decently equipped. And then they're gonna augment them with groups of 50 or so of these prisoner conscripts or other conscripts, and they've been making where they'll get their gains is they'll do a sort of reconnaissance. We would call it reconnaissance by fire, but it's really reconnaissance by conscript, where they just send these guys forward. They'll try and figure out where our positions are based on where they watch the guys die from, and then maneuver on our positions from there. And that's apparently a perfectly fine, viable tactic. We've heard plenty about executions over in the Wagner group, so they're according with the a suicide game basically, where um, if you don't rush us, then you'll get killed going the other way. So I mean, what are you going to do?
And you could possibly face these guys when you deploy to that area in the future. I mean, how do you feel about fighting guys that have no experience, no training, and are just cannon fodder? Does it change the way you think or feel, or in any way?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting, and that's a long answer, Paul. And I'll say, Paul, there's a lot of reasons people come here. Some people come here, let's say, to kill Russians. That's not why I'm here. I'm not here to kill Russians, and I'm here to get Ukraine back. And if that means if the Russians would just walk away from the positions, I wouldn't have to shoot them. That would be really nice, actually. And uh, uh, I've got unfortunately I've had to do like just a lot of mental struggle with any war that in any conflict I've ever been in, and I truly want Russian men to like grow up and raise families and make the world a better place. I want us to compete for who owns Mars. You know what I mean? Like that's where I want our war to be. I want our war to be in tech or something like that. But the Russian government, the Russian kind of psyche has made their choice on this one, and unfortunately, there's not a lot of ways around this current conflict other than to kill lots and lots of idiots who are coming at us. So, if yeah, no, that's a complicated question. Complicated. I could talk about it for a while, but I'll just say that I don't want to kill Russians. I
Yeah,
wish they weren't dying.
yeah.
But if the Russian soldier is in Ukraine, he's in the wrong place, and he needs to go home.
Right. And you mentioned to me recently when we last spoke on the phone that you told me a story about a Russian pilot trying to bomb some guys in a field. You may recall that, and the inaccuracy or ineptitude of that.
Oh yeah, that was at the very beginning. There's a lot of inexperienced people
Yeah.
running around.
Yeah. What was the deal with that one?
That was some of my guys. That was like April or May. It was just a story from some of my guys who some of them are still here. Some of them have gone home. So a lot of them, a fair amount of us have been injured or even killed now. But they were in Mykolaiv, and they had a jet uh, actually get low enough to the ground to fix their position, and they had to run from this jet, and they outran a jet because this
Meg,
jet was
like a Meg.
yeah yeah, like a MiG. And again, I wasn't there. I don't know what model it was, but the guy dropped 3 bombs on them. I mean, like they were, this was like probably an hour-long process is what it sounded like. And he was trying to hit them, and he missed 3 bombs wide. And
Oh,
I mean, that's just an incredible situation because as somebody should have an anti-air, but nobody had an anti-air. So the pilot, is an idiot. We're idiots because we didn't bring a stinger, and it was just it was a funny story. But my guys outran a jet, man.
that is a crazy story. And what's the sense on the ground with your colleagues, your fellow fighters? How's everybody feeling? I mean, this is a grinding war of attrition. It's been going on, a year, and it's just, what do the guys on the ground feel? They are obviously fighting for their future and their country, but do any of them turn to you and say, "Man, I'm done with this. I'm exhausted"? Or what's the motivation like, the morale right now with the troops out there, Ukrainians and legions and people like that?
Well, so the international guys, really the ones who got here last year and are still here. I mean, they're just made to do this job, man. So they're fine. You need little breaks, and we get our breaks. It's easy for us, but for the legionnaires who are still here, this is what we do. So it's fine. But like for right now, I'm working with Ukrainian soldiers, straight up Ukrainians, and it's a mix. We're definitely getting fatigued. We're getting tired. Um, Guys are still really brave. Guys are still really brave, and the guys are still doing the work. Nobody's taking action on that feeling. I'll say I didn't see that one single time, and every single time uh, this winter we needed our Ukrainian friends to help us do something very difficult. They were right there for us, um, and uh, and we were right there for them. So we got to get this. There's no choice. We got to get this plan back. And
What's
the
the
guy,
end?
but
How's this going to end? How if you were in charge, what is the solution to fix or bring an end to this war? What has to happen in your opinion?
yeah, I mean, of course, I've listened to like plenty of like other people's analysis, so that's going to be like sprinkled into my answer here. But the essence, personally, the essence of a win for us is uh, we're gonna take our stuff. We're gonna take Ukraine back. We're gonna take back the ruins of Mariupol, and we're gonna rebuild it. And I know the diplomats and governments are working towards this and that and that and this, but it's the places I've been to. This last town I was fighting over, it's probably with a population of like maybe 10,000 people or so. Whatever, 2,000 families, something like that. It's gone. It's just completely destroyed. It will never be a town again. It is gone. We're fighting from little holes in the basements of like what used to be houses from basement to basement. That's all we've got, and that's the entire front line and areas behind and in front of the front line. It is they're gone, and it's criminal. It's criminal. We got to take back the stuff. We got to take back the stuff. Crimea is going to be hard. I would like for Ukraine to get Crimea back. That would be, if I could wave my magic wand, that we would get that. See how that goes. And I know how it is to fight a hostile population as well in Iraq and Afghanistan. So it's going to be very hard once we get into the Russian-controlled zones of the Donbass. Our friends have left there years ago, so I'm not sure I'm going to get super involved in that sort of work. But we'll see how that goes. I'm dicey on that. I'm not so dicey. I'm not so iffy about Crimea. I think Crimea is ready to come back, but sort of like Donetsk City, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that's going to look like.
What do you think? What's your sense of what the Ukrainian army needs most? I mean, we see requests for fighter jets. Others say we need more tanks. Others say, we need different things. We read about all the different things that Zelensky's asking for. But I mean, from your experience on the ground, what do you think is going to make a difference here? Is it the tanks? Is it the planes, or what?
So I'll say this about the front line, which is that basically the Russians Russian lines are basically, first line, second line, third line, and then logistics support like this, just one after the other. Probably between the first and second line in most places, somewhere between 200 and 500 meters in most places. So the Ukrainian line in most places is like this. It's super stretched out. We're always fighting on a deficit, a massive artillery deficit. We're always fighting on a massive supply and logistics and ammunition deficit. And we still hold, and not only hold our line, but we still push our line, and that's willpower. Our willpower, despite the fact that there's going to be on a given place on our line, there's like at least a kilometer between our first and our second line. And on average, right? Different in Bakhmut. Bakhmut, we're stacked up. But anyway, it's willpower that keeps our line moving. It's not any material. So let's say our big success was the Kharkiv offensive. That was a giant stack of armored vehicles going through a breach and taking back kilometers of territory. We just need the power, right? So like the issue now is the Russian defense is, their intention is for you to attack their first line endlessly, because that they put people they don't care about on the first line, like we talked about with these Wagner guys or conscripts, right? You can just keep killing the people on the first line. They don't care. They'll put that new ones back. And Kharkiv offensive only worked because we went straight to the third line. We went straight to the artillery, and we were able to cut the art. If we don't have to fight in an artillery riddled environment, then it's ours. We win. So all we need the power. The tanks that are coming, the Bradleys and the Leopards and the rest of the big list of the stuff that's coming, that's really going to help a lot. When you talk about air stuff, so Russia has more air stuff, and they weren't able to gain any air superiority. America, we have so much air superiority. It's like we conduct SEAD operations. We establish air superiority, and we control not only the physical space, but the electromagnetic warfare spectrum, and we control the radio and access to GPS and all this other stuff. So to develop the Air Force stuff, we need the Air Force stuff to counter the Russian stuff. To develop American style offensive air stuff, that's going to take like a lot more development that not even Russia could pull off. We need the air just to keep up, because if we don't keep up in the air and Russia just gets air superiority, that means the air superiority, it's layers. Infantry, if we could just fight infantry to infantry, we'd win already. But we got to fight infantry to Russia's tanks and artillery, right? And if Russia could just destroy our tanks and artillery immediately. That would be nice for them, and they're trying to do that all the time. They try to do it with air because that's what air does. Air gets rid of the air. You can think of air as the fourth or the fifth line, right? That stuff can get rid of the third line, can get rid of the artillery. So anyway, we have to keep up with the Russian air power in order to be able to counter it. But the biggest, I'm from what I can tell, from what I can see, it sounds like most people have already made the right call on this, which is we need the tanks, we need the APCs, we need to be able to drive through. We need to be able to bypass and drive through the first and second line, and we have to be able to cut off. Once we cut off the artillery, our infantry can take out their infantry and their tanks. Right, our infantry is like super. We're so good at anti-tank now. It's unbelievable. I mean, if you knew the numbers from Vuhledar, they sent like 300 vehicles at Vuhledar. We're talking we killed 200 of them in the news. Like we're talking about that in the news. We killed 200 vehicles. So they didn't kill the other 100. They were a little bit in the back, I guess, but incredible what was done there. Incredible, and a lot of that is intelligence driven as well. And Ukraine's doing a great job on their intelligence operations as well.
Well, that's a fascinating thing. And so, how does it feel being where you are when these missiles come in? Have you had any scary moments with that? What do you do?
Well, interesting question. So I was running with the Legion. Now I'm back in Kyiv. I'm just training guys. I had a bit of a medical problem ongoing from my injury from last year. And yeah, I live on a fairly high floor in my apartment when I'm not teaching, and I've heard some missiles come in, and that's been very interesting. I had one. I thought some guy. I thought I was in my room here, and I thought a guy just started like using an air compressor in my room, but that doesn't make any sense because I live alone. And and I was like, "Where's the guy with the air compressor?" And yeah, it was a cruise missile or something.
Wow. And how far away? I mean, is it landing from you? Any idea?
One of the hypersonics got pretty close to me. It rattled my building a little bit. Not, I mean, not like close, but close enough.
Wow. And the people in Kiev, how's everybody doing there? I mean, we see the power keeps getting taken out and stuff like that. What's the general sort of feeling of the population there in the city?
We're feeling good. We're feeling good. I mean, people are doing what they normally do. We're all used to the blackouts. We got really lucky with the winter. The temperature has been really hot here throughout this winter. And so we weren't really in like freezing death temperatures for most of this particular winter. Very lucky. Very lucky for the civilians, very unlucky for us military folk who got all their vehicles stuck the entire winter. Me and everybody else was trying to do some good winter offensive work, but we couldn't do hardly anything.
Well, kind of like a blessing and a curse, because when we last spoke, you were getting gear together, winter survival gear for troops and so on, and expecting a brutal winter. But I noticed, I saw a video the other day of a bunch of guys, in trenches up to their like waist in water in the trench. I mean, that's got to be almost worse than snow, right? Fighting out of a trench when your legs are immersed in water for hours on end.
Yeah. Blessing and a curse. I guess we didn't have the armored power this winter to do anything. Russia did. So I would say overall blessing. Overall blessing.
Yeah, and so your plan is, when you redeploy back to the front, or is that obviously,
So
secrets?
I mean, yeah, it's secret stuff. I'm not gonna say who, what, when, or where, but I'll just say it's pretty soon. I'm training 200 guys, and we're gonna go hold the flanks over in Bakhmut. So
That sounds like, yeah, the grind continues, huh?
yeah. But the guys are feeling good. The guys got a good rest, and they're ready to go, man. They're ready to go. We're actually kind of bored here right now, so.
Yeah, and are these newer recruits or are these
No, no,
seasoned?
no. So this is a group when I was injured last year. I got out of the hospital and was just looking for anything I could do to help. I couldn't, move much. I was on some pretty severe physical therapy, but I met up with a Ukrainian military unit, and they just needed a Western instructor for certain weapon systems, stuff like that. So um, it's the same guys. So they've been a lot of them were new back then. Obviously, they still get new guys in here and there, but most of the guys have been there for a while. They've done a really great job in a few places. And anyway, they all remember me, and it's like my cool, happy family here now. So, but they've got experience, a lot more experience on the defense, not so experienced on the offense, but offensive operations is what we're going to be doing. So
Well,
they've got me.
we appreciate you checking back in to catch up with us. We wish and pray for your safety. We thank you for your service, not only to people of Ukraine, but the world. What you guys are doing out there is incredibly brave, incredibly noble, and we all support and think of you guys, and wish you all the best for the future.
Yeah, thanks for giving me an opportunity to spread some truth about the situation here. It's we got to win this thing.
Yeah, keep up the brave fight, and please check back in with us when you get a moment. And Godspeed, and we wish you safety on those front lines.
Thanks, Paul.